The galaxy had been burning for many years. Human fleets and the alien empire of the Viori had fought across stars, leaving broken worlds behind. Neither side was winning. Both were tired, but neither wanted to bow down. Peace seemed impossible until the Council of the Viori made a strange and desperate choice. The Viori queen, Myra, was a strong ruler. Her people respected her power, but they also whispered about her secret weakness. For many years, she had no heir. No prince, no princess, no child to continue her line. In the empire, this was seen as a curse. Some believed the gods had turned against her. Others believed she was unfit to rule. Still, Myra held the throne with iron command, even as the doubt of her people grew. In the middle of this crisis, the council suggested something shocking. To keep peace with humans, they would give their queen to one of them in marriage. The news spread quickly across the galaxy. To the Viori, it was shameful. To the palace of the Viori was a world of whispers. Every hall, every chamber, every garden seemed filled with silent eyes watching. For Daniel, life there was heavy. He was a soldier used to open battlefields, where enemies stood clear before him. In this palace, the enemies hid behind smiles and soft voices. He never knew who was friend, who was foe. Queen Myra walked through those same halls with grace, but she too felt the weight. Her people bowed to her, yet she could hear their doubt. Some called her strong, others called her cursed. And now, with a human at her side, they wondered if she was still fit to rule. She showed them no weakness. Her steps were firm, her eyes cold, but inside she felt the sting of their whispers. At first, Myra and Daniel spoke little to each other. Their bond was political, not personal. Myra spent her days in council meetings, speaking with alien generals and advisors. Daniel remained quiet, standing a little behind her, watching. When they did speak, it was short and formal. "Your people do not trust me," Daniel once said calmly. "Why should they?" Myra replied, her voice sharp. The palace of the Viori glittered with wealth, but shadows hid in every corner. To Daniel, it felt less like a home and more like a battlefield where the weapons were not blades but whispers, not armies but schemes. He had begun to understand Myra more with each passing day. She was proud, strong, and clever, yet her throne stood on unsteady ground. The people respected her power, but the absence of an heir weakened her in their eyes. Without a child, her rule had no future. And now, with a human beside her, enemies felt bold enough to rise. Among those enemies was General Kale, one of the most powerful warriors of the Empire. His armor shone with dark silver, his voice carried authority, and his name was feared across star systems. To the people, he was a hero. To Myra, he was a loyal commander, at least in the past. But Daniel saw the danger in his eyes the first time they met. Kale bowed before the queen, yet his words were sharp. "My queen," Kale said during a council meeting, "our enemies see us as weak. The humans celebrate, believing we have bent the knee to them. This marriage," he glanced at Daniel, "is a chain around your throne." The council murmured in agreement. Myra's face remained calm, but her voice was firm. "This marriage is a bridge, not a chain. Do you wish for another war, General? Do you wish for more graves?" Kale lowered his head in respect, but Daniel noticed the slight curl of his lips, a smile that was not of loyalty but of hidden ambition. That night, as the council ended, Daniel walked behind Myra through the halls. He leaned closer and whispered, "He does not serve you. He serves himself." Myra glanced at him, surprised at his directness. "You speak boldly for a guest in my court." "I am not blind." The weeks after General Kale's secret meetings were heavy with silence. The palace still glittered under the twin moons, but an invisible weight pressed down on its halls. Queen Myra stood firm before her council, but in her private moments, even she felt the storm building. Daniel remained at her side. He said little, but his steady presence became something Myra relied on. He was like a shield, quiet, patient, always watchful. Yet even he could not stop the rumors spreading beyond the palace walls. The empire whispered louder with each passing day. They said the queen's bloodline was broken. They said the gods had denied her children forever. And now, with a human bound to her, many claimed her throne was cursed. Myra had grown used to hearing such things, but one morning, as she prepared for council, she felt something strange, a weakness in her body that made her pause. At first she thought it was stress, but the feeling grew over the next days. Her healers came to examine her. When they returned, their voices trembled. "My queen, you are with child." Myra froze. For a long time, she could not believe their words. She had been told for years that her body could never bear an heir. Her council had whispered of her curse. Even she had begun to accept it as truth. And yet, here she was, carrying a life within her. Her first thought was not joy but fear. If the healers were right, then the child was not only hers, it was also Daniel's. A child born of both Fury and human blood. What would her people think? What storms would this miracle awaken? Still, she knew the truth could not remain hidden. The council chamber was filled with tension when Myra entered. Kale stood among the generals, his eyes sharp as steel. Nobles whispered as Myra raised her hand for silence. "I carry a child," Myra declared. Her voice was strong, though her heart raced. "An heir will be born to..." The palace no longer felt safe. Since the news of Myra's child had spread, shadows seemed to move more freely through its halls. Guards stood at every doorway, but Daniel trusted few of them. He knew too well that gold and whispers could turn a loyal guard into a traitor. Myra tried to continue her duties as queen, holding council meetings, receiving envoys, and speaking to her people. Yet inside, she felt the tension pressing closer each day. Her hand often rested on her stomach, as if to shield the life within. The thought of losing it filled her with a fear she rarely allowed herself to feel. Daniel stayed near her always. He had been a soldier in many battles, but this one was different. There were no clear lines, no armies, only daggers in the dark. He slept lightly, waking at the smallest sound. More than once, he caught servants sneaking where they did not belong, or guards whispering in corners. He said nothing, but his watch grew sharper. The first strike came during a council meeting. Myra sat at the high seat, speaking firmly about new defenses for the capital. Daniel stood behind her, silent as always. Suddenly, one of the scribes rose from the edge of the chamber. His hands moved too quickly. A blade flashed from his sleeve. Before anyone could cry out, Daniel was already moving. He pulled Myra aside, the knife cutting across her throne instead of her chest. The guards rushed forward, seizing the scribe, but the damage was already done. The palace was no longer a place of safety, but of betrayal. That night, Myra stood in her chamber, her voice cold but steady. "They will not stop," she said. "As long as the child grows inside me, they will send blades until one reaches its mark." Daniel looked at her, his hand resting on his sword. "Then I will keep standing between you and their blades." Myra studied him for a long moment. He was no noble, no commander of fleets, yet the tension in the empire had finally broken. General Kale's whispers had grown into roars. Soldiers marched in secret, nobles gathered in shadowed halls, and the streets of the capital whispered with fear and doubt. Myra's throne, once secure, now trembled under the weight of ambition. Daniel stood at her side, a silent pillar of strength. He had trained the palace guards, doubled the patrols, and worked quietly to uncover spies. But even he knew the coming battle would be larger than any they had faced in the halls of the palace. This was not a skirmish, it was civil war, and the heart of the empire was at stake. Myra called her council together. Her voice was steady, her eyes clear. "The throne belongs to me, and my child is the future of this empire. Any who rise against us will meet the full force of our defense. Kale's supporters had already taken positions in the outer districts. Daniel studied the maps with Myra and the loyal generals. They have the advantage of surprise, he said, pointing to the narrow streets leading into the palace. But we know the city better. If we hold the inner walls, we can control the battle. Myra nodded. Then we fight not just with weapons, but with every heart loyal to the throne. The first attack came at dawn. Smoke rose from the outskirts of the city as Kale's soldiers stormed the gates. Daniel led the human soldiers alongside loyal Viori warriors, forming a line between the palace and the advancing army. The clash of steel and the roar of battle filled the air. Myra stood above them, on a balcony, watching. She felt her heart beat faster as the conflict raged. Each strike, each shield raised, each soldier falling to the ground, reminded her of what they were protecting. Not only the throne but the child growing within her. Daniel moved like a shadow through the battlefield. His strategy, learned from years of human warfare, combined with the alien strength of the Viori soldiers, proved deadly. Time and again, he cut through enemy lines, his presence inspiring the defenders around him. In the palace halls, Kale struck with fury. His forces attempted to breach the inner chambers, seeking to capture Myra and end the war quickly. But she had prepared traps, locked doors, and secret passages. Each step Kale took brought him closer to the queen, but also deeper into danger. Daniel intercepted him at the final corridor leading to Myra's chambers. The two men faced each other in silence. Kale's eyes burned with ambition, Daniel's eyes held calm determination. "Step aside, human," Kale growled. "This empire is not yours to defend." Daniel raised his blade. "I defend what is rightfully hers." The palace was calm for the first time in months. The sun rose over the capital, bathing the towers in soft gold light. The battle for the throne had ended. General Kale's rebellion was crushed, and Myra's loyal soldiers now guarded the city with pride. Yet, in the queen's heart, the most important event had yet to come. Her child, the heir of both Viori and human blood, moved within her. Each heartbeat of the tiny life filled Myra with hope and fear at the same time. She had survived war, betrayal, and assassination attempts, but childbirth was a new battlefield, one she could not face alone. Daniel remained by her side constantly. He had grown beyond being a soldier, he had become a partner, a protector, and, slowly, a part of her life she could not imagine without. He held her hand gently, offering strength through quiet words and simple gestures. The palace healers prepared a chamber, glowing with soft lights that calmed the mother and child alike. The room was filled with quiet voices, instructions spoken gently, and tools ready for the birth. Myra took a deep breath, feeling the life within her respond to the calm around her. Daniel knelt beside her, holding her hand firmly. "You are not alone," he whispered. "I am here, every moment." Myra looked at him and smiled, the tension in her face softening. "I know," she said. "And that makes all the difference." The labor began slowly, the first waves of pain strong but bearable. Myra gritted her teeth, holding onto Daniel's hand as he murmured encouragement. Time stretched, and the palace outside seemed to pause, waiting for the moment that would change history. Hours passed. The queen's strength was tested again and again. Daniel remained by her side, helping her breathe, helping her endure. He never left, never faltered, never doubted. His presence was a quiet power, steadier than any weapon or army. Finally, the moment came. Myra drew a deep breath, and with a final effort,